I'd like to call the work session of the Issaquah County Board of Commissioners to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
Oh, over here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Here.
Commissioner Embry,
Here.
Commissioner Delazinski, Commissioner Engler,
Here.
Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Commissioner Swaney,
Here.
Commissioner Ho.
Here.
All present except for Commissioner Jelazinski, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Up next will be approval of the agenda. We'll start with general public comments. We have no presentations or special reports, no appointments to boards or commissions. And then committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee,
Finance and Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chair.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
The Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committees all set, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We do have, Commissioner Marino has a report from our intergovernmental meeting last week. We have no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. We'll have general public comment again towards the end of the meeting. And then adjournment, then announcements and then adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we have an agenda, and up next is general public comments. Anyone for general public comment? Okay, seeing no one for general public comment, we'll move right into committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider ratifying and placing on file the September 13th, 2024 invoice list in the net amount of $264,319.13. The September 20th, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $191,097.31, and the adjustment list dated September 26, 2024. In honor of Vice Chairman Jelazinski, I will remind everybody that all of our invoices are seen by many people within our county government, right from department heads on through to administration, accounting, and then we as commissioners receive these invoice lists well in advance of the committee meeting. And at the committee meeting, we review them again with administration and our new director of finance. So, gentlemen, with that being said, do we have any questions regarding the September 30th invoice list? I just had a quick comment, if I may, Madam Administrator, the Quality Environmental Services, the asbestos abatement contract balance, that is our final payment for the.
That is correct. It's final payment, and that includes retention as well. So that is the final payment to Quality.
Okay. So we are paid up with them, and admin building is clear and ready to start rebuild, correct?
Yes, as far as asbestos goes, if Director Shoemaker was on or was present, he could probably tell you with a little more detail, but there is some asbestos still in the mechanical room, in an area where it was enclosed, and as far as Quality Environmental knew, it didn't have to come out. But as plans evolve and preliminary design, comes to be from Spicer, they're now seeing an area in the mechanical room that does need to be disturbed. So there's probably a little more asbestos work to be done, but it has to be done in conjunction with the renovation project.
So is that included
Most
in this
efficient.
final payment then?
No,
so
and
it'll
it
be
won't
over?
necessarily be, it's over and above what
Okay.
Quality
Cool.
thought was the scope of the work when
Right.
we thought was the scope of the work when we contracted with them. So,
Okay.
question.
Then I see the principal residence exemption on a parcel. I believe we had an individual within the county, property owner that received a homestead exemption for a 3-year period, going back 3 years, and that's why we have that $5,936.96 is.
Actually, they weren't getting it for 3 years, I believe.
Ah.
And yep, the treasurer's
Correct.
office will do an audit on that. And when they're owed that exemption and haven't taken it, the treasurer's office can go back 3 years on that to pay it retroactively.
Okay.
Great question.
Commissioners, any other questions regarding the September 30th invoice list? All right, hearing none, we'll move that on to our regular board session. As far as the September 20th invoice list, do we have any questions, gentlemen? Any concerns? We do have, several payments that were over the $5,000 amount that gets brought out onto the front page. We have $13,414.09 to Cole, Stoker, and Toskey. They're our legal counsel for multiple departments needing legal advice. Monthly equalization contract with Preston Community Services for $19,375. Beyond that, they're just normal, customary bills that we pay ongoing throughout the year. Gentlemen, any questions, any comments, Madam Administrator? Okay. And Madam Director of Finance, if you have anything to add to any of this, feel free to jump in, raise your hand. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, let's move on to the adjustment list dated September 26th. We have only a few adjustments, but they're usual and customary where the sheriff will pay off an invoice in order to get an early payment discount. We have a payment to Midland County Clerk to get a invoice in on time for notary work from administration. And then again, more early payment discounts from the Commission on Aging and the sheriff. Commissioners, any questions on this adjustment list? Seeing none, we'll move that on to our regular board meeting in a little bit here. Our second item for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving prime contract change order number 27 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $60,983. Do we have Heidi with us or anyone from?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now, Heidi,
Hi, good evening.
welcome back.
Thank you. So PCCO 27 is in front of you. Right now we have a current buyout remaining of $42,889. Total contingency at this time has not been touched. And so we have a total combined amount of $824,663. We're about 89% complete with construction. And we have about 37% remaining in bio and contingency. Total amount of PCCO number 27 is $60,983. And going through that list here for you, I'm starting with PCO number 78. We added some exterior wall hydrants for access for any work that needed to be done on the exterior. And to add that exterior wall hydrant was $1,422 that was taken from buyout. Our next item is PCO number 145. The door that leads to the roof, right now, if you were to open that door, it would push out. And with where it's located is possibility of snow drifts there in the wintertime. And so what we did there is instead of having that door, we put an access door in that would swing in and then have a step there. So that way, if there is snow in front of that door, you can easily shovel that out of your way versus trying to push the door open in that area. To change that out, we already had the door frame in, we already purchased the door. So adding the access panel and closing that in and doing some roof rework was a total cost of $16,238. Next item is PCO number 146. We needed to add some detention grade fire extinguishers after review with the fire marshal. And those two detention grade extinguishers added in the Sally Port in the booking area was $2,970. PCO number 147. This was in classroom in the area C, which is the detention area where all the pods and cells are. This was to lower plumbing lines and ductwork for future access to ease if any work with the facilities department needed to work on these later. So that cost there to move these items for future access was a total of $13,043 and was taken from buyout. Next item is PCO number 154. These were some glass type, the light kits that were shown in some of the non-detention doors actually had security glass. In order to make sure that the thickness of the security glass would fit in those light kits, we needed to order different light kits that were larger to accommodate the glass. So that cost was $1,380 taken from buyout. Our next one is PCO number 163. This was the glass at the booking counter. This was one thing, it was a scope item that Clark had missed during the buyout process. That one there, the detention contractor excluded it from their bid, and we did not get a price from the glazing contractor, which this kind of evolved over time. We looked at different options of using security glass, non-security glass, kind of went back and forth. And then we finally landed on using non-security glass laminate, which was a cheaper option. And then putting a speak-through port in there. So when an inmate comes up to that booking counter, that the person behind the counter would be able to hear that person on the other side. So the cost for that ad was $20,585, and that was taken from buyout. Next item was PCO number 173. This one here is for some data ports that we needed to add in the radio key storage area. This cost was $3,825 and was taken from buyout. Next item is PCO number 179. This was in the restraint and emergency equipment room. What was originally shown on the drawings to hold like the, what do you call them? I'm gonna probably call them the wrong thing, but the chains and stuff like that for inmates. Those restraints there would not, what was already on the drawings would not hold the weight of those chains. So the cost to add some different brackets in that room is $1,520, and that was taken from buyout. PCO number 185, we needed to add some additional to institutional covers. This was not adding. This was coordination between two contractors. Total Fire was going to supply them all for the electrical contractor. So basically it was zero cost, just transfer funds from one contractor to another contractor. So the total cost of PCCO number 27 then was $60,983. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Senior Project Manager. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a great night.
You too.
Hearing no more questions, we will move that prime contract change order consideration. Third item, the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving the HAP budget amendment number 2025-1 for fiscal year 25, additional funding. So we had our last board meeting. We brought up very valid points. We had some people have come in and lay the groundwork for us as to where we stand with them and financially, where we stand as a county, our requirements. So I know during that meeting, we did both go move this forward because we did not at the time have the money. That was my stand. And we now have found the money, and I'm going to turn that conversation over to Madam Administrator, and you can explain where the money's coming from so that we can continue our relationship with taxes.
Sure. So after the board directed that $55,000 of HATS funding be reinstated for FY '25. We brought it back to finance last week to say, you know, where do you want the money to come from? It was not the desire of finance commissioners to further reduce the contingency in the FY '25 budget. And so we talked about using ARPA dollars for that, and that was the hope of the finance committee. And that's why you see this budget amendment coming forward on your work session agenda, and it's on regular meeting as well tonight. This budget amendment is how we have to process it accounting wise, right? Accounting wise, budget wise, how it'll end up happening is 55,000 of additional ARPA revenues will come into the budget. 55,000 of additional animal control expenditures will leave the budget. You guys have to approve that because it's not a net zero, right? We're growing that budget day one in the fiscal year. That's for you. That's certainly for you guys to do. But we're not spending ARPA dollars on the HATS contract. And that's what I want to take a minute to explain, right? The appropriate way is to spend 55,000 of ARPA dollars on an eligible expense, right? All public payroll, public servant payroll, public employee payroll is an eligible ARPA expense. We've already applied some of our ARPA dollars to public safety payroll, but there's other payroll certainly from the county that we can apply it for. So what we would do is through our quarterly ARPA reporting, we would say $55,000 of ARPA revenues came in. We applied it to, and believe me, we have to spell out exactly the wages and benefits of the personnel we're applying it to. What that does in your fiscal '25 budget is frees up $55,000 you've already budgeted towards personnel wages and benefits. That 55,000 in your general fund can then go to be paid this additional expense to the HATS contract. But I didn't want you to think because this budget amendment, it's not saying anything about wages and benefits, right? This budget amendment is what you have to do for your general fund budget, bring in those revenues and up those expenses. But behind the scenes, that's not how it's applied. And the way we report that is through our ARPA reporting to Department of Treasury. Are there any questions about that?
Just a little backstory on that. Our contract with HATS, their annual charge to us was $175,000. We sought to get that down to $100,000. They came back and said, there's no way we can do it for $100,000. We can do it for $155,000. So they brought their contract price down to $155,000. And we still had the other $55,000 to make up in the budget.
Fourth final item for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving the Insurance Committee recommendation for full-time employees opting out of coverage at $5,200 per year effective January 1st, 2025. This comes from our Insurance Committee. Can I go back to Chairman Hope and expressing my appreciation for creating this committee? They have done some outstanding work and they've done their due diligence in this regard to come up with a dollar amount that might help save us in our long-term medical costs, benefits costs, by incentivizing individuals who work for the county and have the ability to opt out for the $5,200 per year versus taking our insurance if they have insurance somewhere else. And I think this dollar amount that they come up with, I think as we go through this process, will help save us some benefits, money in terms of benefits, and still allow the employees who work for us to get good coverage, whether it's with us or with someone else. And I think it gives them some flexibility there. So again, thank you to the committee an insurance committee that's put this together. I think it's a good start. So Madam Administrator, I'll turn this over to you for further explanation.
Sure. So we were gonna bring this forward when the insurance committee brought their recommendations forward a few months back on medical and dental, vision, life, disability and all that. But there was just more conversation. They wanted to vet it out a little more. I think, we put out a survey to employees to try and gauge what level would this need to be placed at in order to affect some movement. Currently, we have roughly 8 or 9 employees that opt out of medical. That's it. They receive $100 per pay or, $2,600 per year. And the way we budget when we have a vacancy, we always budget worst case scenario, right? We're very conservative that way. So we budget that if we have a vacancy, that new hire is going to take family coverage, because if we budgeted for single, then it would be up to us to find the money at the time of the new hire, right? So we budget for family, and we've had a couple of new hires recently also opt out. So that saves budget wise, and moving forward into fiscal 25, we've budgeted those vacancies at family and they're opting out. So if you approve this tonight, we'll be bringing forward a budget amendment to be able to pay out the extra to those who are already opting out, and then any of those who might through the open enrollment that we'll have in November for calendar 25. I do want to say this is an annual decision of the board, and just because if you guys were to increase this twofold to 5,200 per year, that's an annual decision that you would want to look at next year at budget time. The same as you're looking at employee cost shares, right? The insurance committee, you'll want to look at this opt-out benefit. You'll want to look and see if did it affect change at open enrollment. But as far as a budget amendment, I do think the money will be there, even with if we had 10 people opting out and we increased it 2,600, right? It's 26,000 total to those 10 people. We're already saving that with the new hires that have opted out, and we've budgeted for family coverage. So I know that the monies will be there, and we'll wait until after open enrollment so we know exactly how many people may have opted out for next year.
Good. Sounds like a win-win.
I think so. Budget wise, we won't
No, for sure.
know for sure, but budget wise, I think the dollars are working because we're conservative budgeters. And then you just have to look at it annually as you're looking at your budget and see how that math works.
If it's working for people, it's working for both them and employees and for the budget. Okay. Commissioners, any questions for myself or Madam Administrator? All right, hearing none, then we'll move this item to our regular board session. And Chairman Hope, that concludes the Administration Committee meeting for the work session.
Thanks, sir. And that will bring us to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
All right, first item, consider approving the quote from Michigan State Industries, MSI, in the amount of $9,294.30 for inmate. And we have Sheriff Mead to walk us through this purchase for the new facility.
Good evening. So this is the last couple of meetings, we've had a few of these things come through. This is from funds that were set aside by the county for this project. We did that to save some sales tax. We've been doing that, and some of it is, we have specific vendors for things just like this. So this is inmate mattresses. We have held off over the last several months here and haven't really ordered a whole lot for replacement. So they're kind of getting a little old, the ones we have, and we have a regular basis of turnover on them. We probably have a handful that we'll bring with us for some spares. This is a state contracted type service. It's kind of strange the way it's set up, but it is state inmates that make these mattresses. And then the state sells them to the county jails, and they use them in the Department of Corrections and so forth. So it's kind of a cool program. It provides some training and learning skills for inmates in the Department of Corrections, provides the counties and others a cheaper ability to get mattresses, and it's worked for us very well. So that part will come out of those funds. And again, we monitor those funds very closely. We have several things that would come out of that, but there's enough money in there obviously still left for the furniture that we need. And then there's a contingency of about 48 or 50,000 left in there, so.
All right, are there any questions about the purchase of mattresses? Actually, there's 207 mattresses for $9,294, so.
So it's one of the things that was, I think, and I apologize to the Criminal Justice Committee. I got busy and I missed the meeting and caught you on your way out. So there was a few questions I wasn't able to get answered. So I'm trying to answer them tonight. Yeah, so the inmates, and that includes the intake cells and that includes the housing. That's why that number is where it's at. So, and there'll probably be a few spares, a couple, 2 or 3 or so, but definitely use them.
Yeah, definitely, we'll probably need spares for replacement for future use.
They do get pretty rough treatment, so they don't tend to last as long as, you know, your mattress at home, that's for sure.
All right. Seeing no more questions, we'll move this forward to tonight's regular session. Item number 2, consider approving the quote from Key Control System Solutions in the amount of $12,760.80 for a key control unit, and authorize board chairperson to sign the same.
So last spring, we attempted a grant opportunity. We were not successful in that to purchase this. Some of our neighboring counties have this system and it's working very well for them. Currently, we have over 100 keys that we've identified for the new facility and walk through. I find control panels and cabinets, and I know there's going to be more. So this system, what it does is it works off our swipe badge readers that the county already has. So we can assign a set of keys to whatever level employee responsibility is. So if it's a corrections officer, if they come in and swipe that machine, it only unlocks a set of keys that they have access to. So there may be administrative keys and stuff on there. They can't have those sets of keys. What's nice about it is at the end of the day, we can set the timers. At the end of the day, if they don't turn those keys back in, it sends us notifications and alerts that their keys not been set back in, so we can track them down and find them. To lose one of these keys or a set of these keys or some of these keys in these facilities is very costly to replace. And our current system is just in an open box, you know, so there's always that human error factor, and we just kind of want to shore that up a little bit and make sure that doesn't happen. One of the questions I think the committee had and that wasn't able to answer was there was some misunderstanding that we had received, we didn't get the grant, but then we'd purchased it, had been approved. And that is not the case. We never went back and asked for that. So we do not have one of those at this time.
Right, Commissioner Engler and I, certainly if anyone was watching the video from the subcommittee, may have some confusion on that. And we were remembering the 2% tribal grant request that didn't get approved. And we're conferring whether or not we had purchased that, and we're moving that forward. But obviously that was not the case. And
I apologize for not being there to be able to answer those. So
definitely a worthy purchase to keep track of keys in facility.
Yes.
To add to the Mandela effect that day, I also thought that you were turned down at 2%, but you had brought it back and it was approved for some reason, but we did research. No, it was never purchased. So you share our confusion. My apologies.
the original thought process was to apply for that grant. However, because of our impending body worn camera transition and basically they're going to stop being able to upload. We felt that was the biggest priority. So we just wanted to select one thing and put into the grant opportunity. But this is pretty important to us too. And with these funds, I think it's a good use of them to offset some problems in the future and some costs. And I knock on wood because I shouldn't say this, but we haven't had any issues in our facility in quite some time. But I have heard the horror stories of having to come in and rekey, you know, a lot of doors at a very costly price in the past. So.
On sport.
Any further questions for the sheriff? All right, seeing none, we'll move this forward to the regular session tonight.
Thank you.
Sheriff,
Okay, the last item up is consider approving the request to upgrade the manpower agreement to include clerical staff and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. We have Karen Jackson here to talk about this, so.
Request is just to upgrade the existing manpower agreement that we already have. All it's doing is adding clerical assistant and job title. At the present time, we don't have clerical added in our agreement. And I talked to Nathan from Manpower. What we did was we came up with a very generic list of duties so that if the county should need any kind of clerical assistance in the future, we can just piggyback on that or add that at any point in time. We made sure, or I made sure that I listed the including other duties as assigned, of course. But a lot of the duties in our office that we needed help with temporarily are not duties that a manpower person can do anyway. And so we just kind of removed those types of duties, just settled it all around just the general office type filing, different things that anybody could do. And so by adding this, at any point in the future, if the county needs any type of general clerical work, they can use this contract to cover that.
Pretty straightforward. The rate will be, it's into the budget and it'll end up being cheaper than hiring a full-time person or full-time, part-time, as we have done before, so.
and
Any
it,
questions?
and it falls in line with the Sweeney principle to allow us to be more nimble when it comes to hiring and staffing. So I think it's a great idea.
I think in general, the county finds a hard time putting people in these places of the temporary positions, be it the materials refuse facility or clerical work in the administration or whatnot. So pulling in manpower where you definitely have a body becomes important.
Okay, is there any more questions? Seeing none, then we'll move this forward to tonight's meeting. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that completes the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, commissioners. Then we'll move right along to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider adopting zoning amendment 24-01, which amends the Isabella County zoning ordinance map in section 34 of Broomfield Township by rezoning with conditions that describe property from agricultural buffer AG3 to general agriculture AG2 and authorize the county board chairperson to sign the conditional rezoning statement of the conditional agreement. And we have Tim Neaport, Community Director, Development Director on screen. Hi, Tim.
Hi there, everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is zoning amendment 2401. It does amend the Isabella County zoning ordinance map in section 34 of Broomfield Township. As stated, the purpose of the amendment is to rezone property from agricultural buffer, which is AG3, to general agriculture, which is AG2, with conditions. The request, as requested by our landowners, Roy and David Weaver. Property is located at 8471 West Deerfield Road, also known as parcel number 01-034-20-00203. Section 1509 of the Isabella County zoning ordinance deals with our conditional rezoning requests, and it is the intent of that section of the ordinance to allow for conditional rezoning requests. It is the intent of that section to provide a process which is consistent with the provisions of the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, which is Public Act 210, or I'm sorry, 110 of 2006, as amended. The important thing to see with the conditional rezoning is that the applicant is required to provide us with conditions. We're not allowed to impose conditions upon them, but they can request conditions for us to consider through contract. In this instance, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 12th of 2024 to rezone the property with conditions requested by Roy and David Weaver. The conditions in what the Weavers are proposing is a sawmill under the operation of a milling and processing of farm products. We've had about 5 of these type of requests over the last maybe 10 years or so. I believe the last one was about a year ago. What the applicants do, or what they're requesting to do, is to move from the AG2 to the AG3. I'm sorry, AG3 to the AG2. In the AG2 district, there are special land uses listed. They are by condition giving up all of those uses except for that one, milling and processing of farm products. So essentially what they're doing is they're moving their property so that they can do this sawmill and sawmill alone. At the Planning Commission meeting on September 12th, there was a public hearing held. There was no public comment heard. There was no public comment delivered to our office on the rezoning, and the Planning Commission did move forward with making a recommendation to the county board to approve this conditional rezoning and sign the conditional rezoning agreement. Is there any questions for me?
Go ahead, Commissioner Sweeney.
When you were speaking there about comments for Planning Commission and you turned away, I couldn't hear. And I remember someone speaking kind of in general about it.
There was no, my understanding from the minutes, I was not at the meeting. I had a previous conflict that evening, but the draft minutes that were put together has no comment from any public at the meeting. There was other topics at the meeting that evening that I know were higher priority, and there was quite a bit of discussion about, I believe, the tower over in Denver Township.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the next one, and that'll be on our agenda this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Our next item, consider approving the agreement for services between Isabel County on behalf of the Isabel County Recycling Center and the Saginaw Indian Tribe of Michigan in the amount of $1,149,038 for the solid waste infrastructure and recycling project, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Jake Morton here to give us the news.
Good evening, afternoon, evening. As you can see, what we've brought forward is a contractual agreement with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe for an EPA grant of total of I think $1.499 million in total. That total on what the MRF or the Isabella County Recycling Facility will receive is $1,149,038, and that is for the purchase of equipment, whether it be within the expansion of the facility. That is the hope, but it can be purchased for use within what we have now. So this is just the contract that finishes up that EPA grant and awards that money. But the tribe wanted to be able to have a contractual interest in it because we will be actually a contractor under that EPA grant to them. So they are doing all the reporting off of that, but this is just an obligation to be able to make sure that we're spending that money in accordance to what the EPA is going to require. We have to follow Davis-Bacon Act, and we also have to follow what is called BABA, which is build and buy within, if it's build and buy within America itself. So some pretty strict regulations that we have to follow with it, but it's pretty straightforward contractual agreement that was reviewed by our legal staff. There was a few changes made. There was one on there that our legal staff would have liked to have seen changed, that the Saginaw Chippewa tribe had no interest whatsoever in changing. And that was that anything, if there was any contractual issues with it, that it would be tried in tribal court rather than within our court system itself. So, and they were not interested at all in changing that. And it's quite understandable. So, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. We're just asking for your approval on it with the board chair to sign the same. Any questions?
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
We'll move that on to tonight's meeting.
Okay, our next item is consider approving the individual service contracts between Isabella County Commission on Aging and James Vandermeer, Stacy Graham, Angela McGurk, Catherine Tobin, Judy Swartz, Steve Wood, and Mary Alsager to provide activity services, and Virginia Kane to serve as acting living newspaper editor effective October 1st, today, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And we have Jennifer Crawford here, Director of the Commission on Aging, to break this down for us. Hi.
Hi there. Well, for the record, I just want to let everybody know that the Tigers just won.
Oh, hey, all right.
For wondering, not that I. So tonight I'm bringing forward all of our personal service contracts for the year. We're so fortunate here at Commission on Aging to have so many wonderful individuals who continue to want to work with us and for us, providing so many different enrichment type activities to the older adults in our community. And so this first round, this is for our activities program. So this would be all of our fitness instructors, which we do provide those classes free of charge for any older adult in our county, 60 and older. And then also our painting instructor who provides a painting class once a month, which is so popular. And then also the editor for our paper. So this would be that full group, and this would be their contracts for the year to continue to serve us.
Any questions or comments on this item? Awesome. Seeing and hearing none, we'll forward this to the next meeting this evening.
Okay, our next item, we get to stay with Jen for about 4 of these. In-home personal individual service contract between Isabel County Commission on Aging and Elizabeth Jane Starr Gefford for the services as registered nurse effective October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
Contractual position is actually a requirement from the funding received through Region 7 Area Agency on Aging. And so we have to have an RN work with our program to review all of our treatment plans that are conducted by our social workers with their clients that they serve. So Jane has been working with us for a few years now and has done a wonderful job. She's very efficient. And so she does come in as needed. They contact her when we have a lump of treatment plans ready to be reviewed, and she comes in and knocks them out and is a great help. All of our social workers and our in-home staff, they work really well with her and really enjoy having her on with us.
Yes, all these people that, as we're going through this, have been with us quite a long time and are just wonderful, dedicated people. So we thank them so much. And thank you, Jen. We'll move that on to tonight's meeting.
Okay, so we still have Jen here. Our next item is consider approving the individual personal service contracts with Robert Lee and Paul Stickler as bulk food delivery drivers from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. What do we have here, Jen?
So I brought to you a couple of rounds ago our sub that we have for bulk meal. And so Lou Cummings, and we have him through this full fiscal year. These are the other two gentlemen. We like to have three because we always try to have a sub. We have two different routes that are ran Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And what the bulk meal drivers do is they show up here in their personal vehicles. We load them up with all of the bulk meals that are going out to our congregate sites. And so they deliver all of those out to those sites so that meals can be provided at those other 4 locations. And then also it's a help if we happen to have a home delivered meal driver that's out in that area, they could maybe just meet the driver there and collect their meals at that site instead of coming all the way here to the kitchen here. It's a great service, and then these gentlemen are having a blast, and our staff is just having a great time with them.
Okay, any questions or comments on this one?
I just want to say, these two gentlemen, thank you, and the subs that step up to the plate and jump in there too.
Such a big help.
Very much. We'll move that on to tonight's meeting. Our last item for Jen is consider approving the fiscal year 2025 Isabel County Commission on Aging Nutrition Site Agreement for congregate meal sites with Shepherd United Methodist Church at a rate of $150 per month, Fremont Township Wynn Community Building at a rate of $300 per month, Rosebush Manor at a rate of $90 per month, and Sherman Township Wademan at a rate of $250 per month, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
These agreements allow us to provide our congregate meals spread out through the county. So we do offer those Monday, Wednesday, Fridays every week. Here at our main kitchen, it's 5 days a week. So we're here Monday through Friday serving a hot lunch. But on those 3 days a week, we do have lunches served out in the outlying site. So we're in Shepherd, Wynn, Rosebush, and Wademan. And it allows people in those communities that might want to travel all the way to Mount Pleasant to meet with folks in their communities and have lunch. They also provide like socialization and some fun activities. Our site facilitators have done such a great job of trying to increase numbers because congregate meals across the nation has just been on a decline for the last several years. And they've done a great job, whether it's music or different types of entertainment, bringing in, finding out what the folks like in their specific areas, and bringing in, different things to try to attract them to come in for lunch. So they're doing a great job.
Have any questions? Want to thank you, Jen. It's a great way to get out to the public and make sure everything's going smooth there. Thank you very much. That completes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Gentlemen, thank you, Jen. Up next is Intergovernmental Affairs, and we did meet via Zoom last week. Our intergovernmental group consists of representatives from the county, the city, Union Township, and the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. Commissioner Marino took some notes, I'm told has a brief rundown for us.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The members present were Tobin Hope, Board Chairman, Nicole Frost, Administrative Controller, myself, Aaron DeSense, City Manager for the City of Mount Pleasant, Brian Milkey, Supervisor of Union Township, and Mark Strenhire, Manager of Union Township, Eric Rodriguez, Public Relations Manager for the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, Connie Bills, and Brian Smith. It was very interesting. There was a lot to report from everybody. We started out with an update on the Mount Pleasant Town Center, which I'm sure you have all seen. I really like the umbrellas, and I guess that color has to do with some kind of it's a program. I think it's a health program. I can't remember offhand what it is, but I really like that aqua color. Anyway, it's a good shape going into the future. The center, there's $230,000 in it now, and there's still a few things to do on it. I think the restroom thing is. You also mentioned peak program, and there are thinking of different ways of funding that. They're continuing with it. It's really a popular program to provide a place for kids to go, not in school. And they are trying, they got a grant that's working out on that. And a few other things about the city is the city has air tags to hold on to city properties, tag them, you know. And they're gonna have with peaks, they're gonna have an agency, Progressive Consultants, to work with them. For us, also, Aaron mentioned mission improvement. That's going to be coming up with different designs. Also, the next report was from Eric Rodriguez. He mentioned the new SAG Chip Academy for kids, and also the completion of a housing unit with 1, 2, 3 person apartments and 16 units with affordable housing. Also, they're right now it's for tribal members only, but they're investigating a way that it could apply to other people too, besides members of the tribe. And also he mentioned for fun, Evanescence, that band, will be the last concert for the tribe. Also, they talked about the pathway to mission with Shepherd, Union Township, and the city all working together to complete that pathway. And also from the county, we found out that the jail is 90% complete, and it will be completed under budget, and tours will be set up to view it. And the western part of the jail, we're talking about the old jail now, and through some research, we found that the western part of the jail was built in 1980, whereas the other parts was built in 1950. So it's been proposed that it could be used for storage for the rest of the administration buildings. There was talk about the material management plans. We have 80 counties in at this time, and that's making the use of the money that we just talked about for expansion with robots and sensors really going to be appropriate with all the increased capacity that we will have. Okay. Aaron, the city manager, talked about a software program called Hazer, I believe, and it gathers data in the city about like business transactions and so forth. It's anonymous, so it doesn't identify the people, but it just collects data on where people are buying stuff, what they're buying, and so forth. And he's indicated that he would share some of the information with the township and the county. We're kind of excited about that. It's a good way to see the things that you don't really realize with the software. Also, it was announced that there will be a economic outlook session October 8th at Courtyard Marriott, 11:30 to 1 p.m. And that's about it. There was a lot of stuff going on. If you had anything to add.
Thank you for that. We have no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. Brings us down to general public comments. Is there anyone for general public comment?
going to break with my trend of speaking last because I want you guys to get this before the next session in case you want to look at it. First, I prepared these comments this morning and then I had a long meeting, a good meeting with someone in this county. And I learned a couple things. One is we have some great people that work in this county. And number two, we have some great challenges in this county. And all of those dwarf what I'm going to talk about today. So I thought about not even mentioning this, but I think a wise one once said, if you're not faithful in the little things, you won't be faithful in the big things. So I want us to look at this because I think there's a case where we need to be faithful in some of these little things. Good afternoon, commissioners, county staff, and citizens. I'd like to take this moment to discuss the HATS funding that will be voted on in the next session. First, I want to discuss where the 55,000 proposed increase is coming from. As was mentioned today, the county did not believe they could apply directly the 55K of ARPA money to the HATS. So the county is proposing what was referred to in the finance committee as a shell game. And I think it was accurately called that, to put the $55,000 of ARPA funds into wages and then take the extra $55,000 of wages that are no longer necessary and move that to HATS. And while I cannot comment on whether or not that is actually legal to make that maneuver, I can say that generally in finance, when you feel the need to hide things or shuffle things to technically be legal, that's usually an indication that you're doing something wrong. Using that same logic, we could have applied all of the ARPA funding to wages and then used the originally budgeted wages to effectively skirt any rules of ARPA funding. I'm disappointed that no one seemed to object to that or really ask any questions about it. I would not want someone to do that with my personal finances nor my business finances. And I'm not excited about my county doing that with our county finances. Commissioners, we can do better than this. Aside from that, I want you to keep in mind the problem that we're making for the future years. As proposed, HATS would be paid now $155,000, the 100 budget plus an additional 55. Now, technically that 55 is coming out of the operating budget. And then we had an extra 55 that was put into the administration wages from ARPA. Well, that ARPA won't be there the next year. So we have to make a decision the following year with no ARPA. Who's going to give up that extra 55,000? Is it HATS or is it the administration wages who's going to volunteer to not take another 55,000? So that's just another $55,000 problem that we've set for the future year because of how we're doing this. A second, in the last work session, Director of HATS discussed the proposal for cutting the funding from 175,000 a year to 100 a year was too much, and that HATS may not be able to continue serving the mission with that deep of a cut. The director mentioned that the operating expenses of HATS was around 500,000, something above, slightly above 500, I think. And it was implied that the 175,000 the county was paying was low, and other counties were spending even more, and it was such a great deal for our county. Unfortunately, as was mentioned 2 weeks ago, the director of HATS failed to discuss other income that HATS has. Fortunately, there's public record of that since it's a tax exempt organization. So we have the public tax returns for tax exempt organizations. Now, time's not going to permit me to go through all the details of these returns. They're long, and I just printed the first page, which has the most relevant information. And I know I'll be close to my 3 minutes, maybe I already am. But to summarize, here's the gist of it. In 2018, what do you think the total revenue was of HATS? We gave them 175. What was their total revenue? 631,000. In 2019, what was it? Actually, we didn't even give them 175 at that point. I think we gave them less. In 2019, their total revenue was 651,000. In 2020, their total revenue was 692,000. In 2021, their total revenue was 864,000. In 2022, their total revenue was 659,000. If you were thinking that the revenue might have been 175 or 200 or 300 and they're spending 500, you would have been mistaken on that. If we were to presuppose that we subtract the 75,000 that we're saying that we want to remove from their budget, if we took it from each one of those years, that would still leave a gross revenue in all 5 of those previous years between 556,000 and 789,000, well above the 500,000 that they're saying is their operating expenses. There was lots more details in here. Please feel free to look through them. Some years they made a profit of 180,000. Some years they made a profit of 240,000. Some years they lost 130,000. So it's typical like any organization. At the end of 2022, which is the last public record we have, I think the 2023 taxes were filed maybe a month ago, so they haven't come through. HATS had a fund balance, a surplus of $308,000 that they had in 2022. Again, I mentioned I don't have the reports for 2023. I believe they were filed last month and they haven't come through the public system. But I do know that in 2024, HATS received a donation for, depending on who you read, between 160,000 and 185,000 from a gentleman who passed away in Isabella County and left a fairly sizable donation. I believe that was in January of 2024. They also received in 2024 of August, 29,660 versus via a matching grant from United Way. United Way contributed 12.5 and then others raised about 17,000. That's over $200,000 of raised just in 2024. Now, as I had said before, I do not intend to state nor imply that HATS is making money hand over fist, not that way at all. However, from the evidence that's available to the public, it seems quite clear that a $75,000 cut would not lead to the cessation of services. A third, I want to bring some additional data points to discussion that were not mentioned by HATS, but I think should be mentioned. The Humane Society of Midland County, so our sister county to the east, has several parallels with HATS. The Society for Midland County was founded in 2011. I believe it was during a budget challenge when their then sheriff at the time actually suggested turning over the animal shelter to a nonprofit to save money for the county. Midland County rents that building to the Humane Society of Midland County for $1 a year. Sounds quite familiar. That's what we have. However, the Midland County pays no additional cost to the nonprofit. Not $170,000, $5,000 a year, not $155,000 a year, not $100,000 a year, nothing. That shelter receives no dedicated government funding. Since 2011, it has found homes for approximately 2,000 animals per year. I believe if I got my numbers right, that's 2 to 3 times what HATS has done for Isabella County. That shelter in Midland is also a no-kill shelter. And to the best of my understanding, it is also an open shelter, which is almost unheard of these days, as opposed to a managed intake. Meaning if you live in Midland County and you have an animal that you don't want and you bring to that shelter, they will take it, unlike our shelter. While its budget is larger than HATS, and it has obviously serviced 2 to 3 times more animals, in 2022, the Midland County shelter paid $339,000 in salaries, compared to HATS in that same year paying $507,000 in salaries. We'd have to look into it to see if one is overpaid or underpaid. I'm just stating that the Midland County shelter with $339,000 of salaries did 2 to 3 times what we did in Isabella County with $500,000 of salaries. I also have a copy of a 2022 Facebook post from the then director of the Humane Society of Midland County. I really wish you guys would read this. She talked about how no-kill shelters have created a monster. Again, this is the director of the Humane Society of Midland County talking about how no-kill shelters have created a monster. Now, keep in mind, you may say, oh, I'm going to propose a no-kill shelter. This note is from the director of a no-kill shelter. So it's not a condemnation of no-kill shelters when she says that, but it's rather a condemnation of no-kill shelters that also do managed intake, meaning that the shelters only take in the animals they can handle, and the rest of the problems are left to the constituents. Also, from a comparison perspective, the Humane Society of Midland County offers spay-neuter for feral cats, $25 for a male, $35 for a female. If the owner can't pay, they'll subsidize that. HATS charges $80 per cat. That's 2 to 3 times more money there. And at least when I had used HATS in the past, which we don't anymore, you had to schedule about 60 days out to get that spay-neuter set. It's not just the constituents who struggle with HATS. Commissioner Hope and Commissioner Moreno, you represent the districts in the city of Mount Pleasant, I believe. Does the city of Mount Pleasant use our county animal shelter to deal with our cat problem? I really wish I could ask you this. I know I can't. I have to be rhetorical, but I believe the answer is no. It seems that the city has found them difficult to work with, so the city uses a different local cat clinic in the area, and they funnel their money for their cat problem to a different clinic. How disappointing it is to know that we provide free rent and $175,000 a year in payments to an organization that our largest municipality doesn't even use. Lastly, I want to address a couple platitudes that the director of HATS presented. It was recommended that the county should not be penny wise and pound foolish. I think even the Morning Sun reported on this. Hopefully they will not report on me. I agree with the director on that particular point, but the implication here was that it was better to be penny foolish, pay HATS more money up front, money that we don't necessarily have, and pound wise, since HATS is spending $500,000 in services that we would get for the 175. But I would ask the county to be penny wise and pound wise. Be penny wise with not giving excess money to an organization that does not truly need it, and is only partially meeting our needs. And based on the public tax returns that we've seen, we can be assured that they're being pound wise with the money that they have, as we can see from those records. It was also mentioned by the director that one can tell a lot about mankind by how they treat animals. This was in the context of describing that when Hats took over the shelter, it ceased to be a kill shelter. What is not mentioned there is the monster, to use the terms of the Midland County Shelter director, that this ends up creating. I want you to imagine a poor family with a cat. Finances get tight. They make the tough decision that they need to take the cat, their pet, their friend to the animal shelter. Unfortunately, the animal shelter tells them they're full and the owner will have to take the cat home. Eventually, the money gets even tighter and the owner lets the cat outside. They can't take care of it, let it go cut its mice and take care of itself. A few months later, the cat shows up pregnant. Even though finances are still tight for that family, the owner sees the pregnant cat, brings them back in, and now they have a litter of kittens. They take the cat with a litter of kittens to the shelter. Same answer. Sorry, we're full, take it home. At this point, the owner is deciding between cats and their rent or their food for their family. So they take their cats to Farmer Engler's field, as we learned 2 weeks ago. 2 of the kittens don't make it through the night. One's eaten by a coyote. One's hit by a car and dies slowly on the side of the road. The remainder of the kittens and cat make their way to Farmer Engler's barn, where in a few months, they're going to have another couple litters of kittens that Mr. Engler will have to deal with. So how do we judge mankind by the treatment of these animals? Was mankind kinder to these animals than if mankind had taken the first cat, fixed it, tried to adopt it out, and worst case, if it came to that, put it down in the most calm and humane way? I don't know. That's a decision we all have to decide and wrestle with, but I do know that implying that no-kill shelters explicitly makes for a better mankind treatment of animals is at best an oversimplification, and likely it's just plain wrong, as the director of the Humane Society in Midland so honestly and transparently explained. I'm sure my 3 minutes are up. Let me be clear. I'm not here to pick on Hats nor the Hats director who spoke. For every one of the Hats team, including Director Barbary and others who are out there actually trying to do something, there are scores of others who are doing nothing but complaining. And while I do not agree with everything Hats does, I do appreciate that they are trying to do something. But you as commissioners, I would ask you to consider the evidence. We don't have $55,000 extra to spend. We already borrowed $500,000 from the next year by not making our principal payment. Our children will be paying for that for the next 30 years. We don't need to borrow another $55,000. It's not necessary. If you decided you wanted to borrow it for some reason, there's other things we could spend that on for other things that we have cut, the road patrol, prosecuting attorneys, etc. Hats has more budget than I think you might have been led to believe. Again, evidence is right here, as these reports will show you. And there are Hats alternatives like Midland County, like Dallas to the Rescue. I've talked to Commissioner Hope about this. They'd be interested in competing for that contract, and others who are out there who can do more with less. The service that Hats is providing, while laudable, is not meeting the long-term needs of our constituents, and the strategy needs to be rethought in the future. Commissioners, if we're not willing to solicit bids from other competing organizations for this work, I would ask you to please consider voting no to stay with the original budget of $100,000 for Hats. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comments? Okay, seeing no one else, commissioners, any announcements? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know if I gave you these numbers earlier, but I got some new numbers on the Isabel Conservation District. Pickup cleaning, hazardous waste cleaning. So I have the fall and the spring numbers now. So our spring numbers, we had 1,000 pounds of pesticides, herbicides, 26,500 pounds of electronic waste, and 24,000 pounds of household hazardous waste. Okay, our fall collection with the clean sweep, we had 2,054 pounds of the herbicides, pesticides, the household hazardous waste, we had 14,195 pounds. And the electronic waste, we had 21,173 pounds. So every year, we think those numbers are going to go down, but they're going up. We usually have to budget or a year in advance, so we do plan on doing 2 for 2025. The costs of everything has went up. Right now, we're talking with some grant writers because we're going to fall a little bit short, but we're going to guarantee that we're going to find that money to do the 2. Where we do in 2026, we'll have to deal with that when we go, because cost of everything's gone up so high. But those are the numbers we got, and we are looking forward to doing 2 more pickups next year. So when we get those dates, we're working on that right now. I'll announce them. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I just have one quick one, and that score was 3-1, by the way. First game. Commissioner Embry earlier mentioned the Employee Healthcare Committee. Those terms were all up and several of those folks renewed. I just want to thank the people that put their time in to work on that. And I want to say that they really get down into the weeds of our plan design. When we got our rate renewals back for this year, they were going to hit us with a 20% increase. And so the healthcare committee started exploring options. Did some plan design changes, increased employee co-pays a little bit here and there. But trying to implement something that had a minimal impact on employees, but still reduce that cost to the county. And we got that increase down to a 10% increase. So, but anyway, I want to thank the folks that have agreed to sit on that. Carolyn Johnson and Edwina Clark for non-exempt employees. For the exempt employees, Timothy Nieport and Kathleen Schaefer. The Administrator Controller Nicole Frost, HR Specialist Teresa Bristow, Trial Court Administrator Carrie Curtis, Sheriff Mike Main and Jennifer Wilson, myself, Commissioner Marino, and as a Isabella County retiree representative Sharon Brown. So thanks to those folks for being willing to serve the next 3 years on that committee. And that's all I have. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Are adjourned at 6:12.